Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are fine. In our lecture today, we will discuss chapters 32 to 34 in Wuthering Heights, a novel by Emily Bronte. Well, starting with chapter 32, a summary and commentary. The main characters in chapter 32 are Lockwood, Nellie, Zillah, Harrington, Kathy, and Heathcliff. Setting, places, Wuthering Heights, Thrushcross Grange, and the Moors. Time, 1802. Now, moving on to the summary of chapter 32. As a matter of fact, the summary of chapter 32 includes two important points. The first point is Lockwood's return. Well, 6 months later, Lockwood is in the area and returns to the Grange, only to find that Nellie is now living at Wuthering Heights. He travels there, and Nellie tells him what has happened since Lockwood left. 2 weeks after Lockwood departed from the Grange, Nellie was summoned to Wuthering Heights to be Kathy's companion because Zillah has left. The second point is the development of Kathy's and Harrington's relationship. So while Nellie's there, Kathy admits to her that she was wrong to have made fun of Harrington. Harrington avoids Kathy, and Heathcliff withdraws from everyone. After Harrington accidentally shoots himself and has to stay inside, he and Kathy argue, but eventually make up and agree to be cousins. As a peace offering, Kathy wraps up a book and has Nellie presented to Harrington. If he accepts the book, Kathy will teach him to read and vows never to tease him again. Okay, after giving a summary to chapter 32, now we will move on to the commentary of this chapter that includes 4 important points. The first point is about the year 1802. Actually, a date, 1802, opens this chapter, calling to mind the first chapter and indicating the passage of time from whence Lockwood initially began his diary. The second point is the contrast and the dual nature found in this chapter. So as Lockwood returns to the area, he notices the disparity between the moors in winter and summer. Once again, the idea of a contrasting yet dual nature comes through. Wuthering Heights is based on contrasts, and as the novel nears its end, themes that were previously shown but not told are now being spoken of directly. Another important point in the commentary of chapter 32 is Heathcliff's death. When Lockwood arrives at Wuthering Heights, he does not encounter a lock, the first sign that a change has taken place. The fragrance of flowers and the fruit is the second. While Nellie mentions that Heathcliff has been dead for 3 months, she backs up in time to provide the details of the narrative that occurred between the time Lockwood left and his subsequent return. The fourth and last important point in the commentary of chapter 32 is the idea of forgiveness. So in this chapter, forgiveness occurs for the first time in a scene reminiscent of Catherine's death. Kathy begs forgiveness. This time it is Harriton, not Heathcliff, who must decide, and he forgives her. With Kathy and Harriton becoming allies, the second generation is not doomed to repeat the mistakes of the first. All that needs to fall into place is the death of Heathcliff. And that's all about chapter 32. Moving on to chapter 33. Its summary and commentary. Well, the main characters in chapter 33 are Nellie, Kathy, Harriton, and Heathcliff. Setting, place, Wuthering Heights. Time, 1802. Now, in the summary and commentary of chapter 33, we have three important points. The first point is the development of Kathy's and Harriton's friendship. The second is Harriton's embodiment of both Catherine and Heathcliff. The third is Heathcliff's retirement and solitude. So at breakfast the next morning, Harriton takes Kathy's side in an argument against Heathcliff. On his part, Heathcliff is about to strike Kathy. But as he looks into Kathy's eyes, he controls himself. Later that night, he sees Harriton and Kathy sitting together. Kathy's eyes and Harriton's entire being remind him of Catherine. At this moment, Heathcliff admits tonally that he does not have the desire to complete his revenge. Everywhere at Wuthering Heights, Heathcliff is being constantly reminded of Catherine, and this is tormenting him. Also, as Kathy and Harriton become friends, Heathcliff loses his desire for revenge. He refuses to speak of Kathy, but Harriton is the embodiment of Catherine and himself, that is to say, Heathcliff. Her features and his personality come to life in the character of Harriton. Eventually, the realities of this world are driving him mad. So Heathcliff seeks solitude more and more often. Overall, in this chapter, we have a dramatic situation. So the first part of this chapter contains a dramatic situation involving Kathy and Heathcliff. Kathy, having become overconfident on account of her intimacy with Harriton, speaks to Heathcliff in a very defiant manner, which infuriates Heathcliff. She almost throws a challenge at Heathcliff by saying to him, "If you strike me, Harriton will strike you." However, she is mistaken in this view because Harriton is absolutely tame in Heathcliff's presence. It is an exciting scene which shows that neither Kathy nor Heathcliff has lost their original hotness and tyrannical spirit, respectively. On his part, Hareton is changed, only in so far as his feelings towards Kathy are concerned. But he remains perfectly submissive to Heathcliff. At this time, we are told Hareton is 23 and Kathy 18. Another important thing in this chapter is the psychological value of it. So, in the second part of this chapter, which is really important, we have a great psychological value, and it is directly related to the central theme of the novel, which is the Heathcliff's Catherine relationship. Heathcliff here gives us a glimpse of his own mind. He reveals to us that all his past actions have been governed by one idea, and that idea was his love for Catherine. In every object he sees the image of Catherine, and he has been tormented by a sense of failure. This is how he expresses this sense of defeat. The entire world is a dreadful collection of memoranda that she did exist and that I have lost her. Hareton is to him a reminder of his youth, and Hareton's countenance is a reminder to him of his immortal love for Catherine, of his wild attempts to gain Catherine, and of his own degradation, his pride, his happiness, and his anguish. Hareton's love for the younger Catherine, that is to say Cathy, has become symbolic in Heathcliff's eyes of his own immortal love for the elder Catherine. Another important fact from the psychological point of view is the change that comes upon Heathcliff. So far as his destructive attitude towards the two families, the Anshaws and the Lintons, is concerned, says he tonally, it is a poor conclusion, is it not? I get levers and mattocks to demolish the two houses, and train myself to be capable of working like Hercules. And when everything is ready and in my power, I find the will to lift a slate of either roof has vanished. I have lost the faculty of enjoying their destruction, and I am too idle to destroy for nothing. And that was all about chapter 33. Moving on to chapter 34, its summary and commentary. It is the final chapter in Wuthering Heights. So, the main characters in chapter 34 are Kathy, Hareton, Nolly, Joseph, and Heathcliff. Setting places Wuthering Heights and the Moors. Time 1802. In this chapter, however, the summary and commentary include 4 important points. The first point about fasting and the ritual of food. The second point is Heathcliff's loss and death. The third point is the supernatural elements and the Gothic. The last and fourth point is the happy ending. Now, starting with the first point, which is about fasting and the ritual of food. In Wuthering Heights, fasting and the ritual of food is achieved through Heathcliff and Catherine. So Heathcliff continues to seek solitude and only eats once a day. One night, a few days later, he leaves and is out all night. When he returns in the morning, Kathy remarks that he is actually quite pleasant. He rejects all food. And in this situation, Heathcliff is actually like Catherine. Takes no food as he nears death. And this is a ritual fasting. Food no longer sustains him. He needs to be nourished by something more. Heathcliff is consumed with pain, and he longs to be united with Catherine. On their parts, readers easily forgive, if not forget, what a monster Heathcliff had been, for he is such a pitiable shadow
Furthermore,
of his
regarding
former
to the
self.
second important point in the summary
And commentary of chapter 34, we have Heathcliff's loss and death. So, regarding to Heathcliff's loss, the growing love between Cathy and Harrington serves to intensify Heathcliff's loss, and this leads to his death. So when Nellie tries to encourage him to send for a minister, he scoffs at her and reminds her of his puerile wishes. Later, Nellie sends for the doctor, but Heathcliff refuses to see him. The following night, Nellie finds Heathcliff's dead body. Harrington is the only one to mourn Heathcliff's dying. They bury Heathcliff. They bury Heathcliff according to his wishes, and villagers swear that he and another walk the moors. Moreover, the third important point in the summary and commentary of chapter 34 is the supernatural element in the Gothic that can be shown through three references. The first one is Heathcliff as a goblin or vampire. So this chapter contains a long account of the manner of Heathcliff's death, brings the story of the novel to a close. The whole of this chapter is permeated by a weird and supernatural atmosphere. In the first place, Nellie's reaction to the strange glitter in Heathcliff's eyes when he returns home one morning gives rise to such an atmosphere. Nellie thinks to herself, that smile and ghastly paleness. It appeared to me not Mr. Heathcliff, but a goblin. She asked herself whether he is a ghoul or a vampire. The second is Heathcliff as a fiend. So, secondly, the entire behavior of Heathcliff, as described in this chapter, gives us the feeling that he is not an ordinary or normal man.
In fact, he himself says tonally, I believe you think me a fiend, something too horrible to live under a decent roof. Then his open eyes and parted lips after he has died contribute to this weird impression, especially because the eyes simply refuse to be shut. And then comes Joseph's comment that the devil has carried off Heathcliff's soul. The third is the appearance of the ghosts, represented by Catherine and Heathcliff. So finally, there are the stories regarding the ghosts of Heathcliff and Catherine having been seen at night on different occasions by different people. Finally, the fourth and the last important point in the summary and commentary of chapter 34 is the happy ending. So the happy ending in Wuthering Heights is represented by two important points. The first point is the marriage between Kathy and Harrington. So Wuthering Heights ends on a universal note, with love conquering hate. Although the novel closes on a somber note, the ending does not depress us, because, in the first place, Catherine and Harrington are going to be happily married. And in the second place, and this even more important, we have the reunion between Catherine and Heathcliff. So Heathcliff and Catherine have been united in death. The stories about their spirits roaming the moors symbolize this union. So the love, which could not be fulfilled during the lifetime of the two, has been fulfilled after their death. That was the end of our lecture today. For further reading, please refer to these references. Next lecture, we will start a revision. Thank you very much for your time and good luck.